So thank you for joining today's session. It's a special session, and as always, we are excited to have you. Uh,
Angalia
hello.
tutakuja kwa simu.
kupata kwa duka.
I would also kindly request if you are not speaking, you can unmute. You can mute your mic so that it doesn't interfere with
Leo wako
the,
free anaweza.
the person who is speaking.
Huyu mkimaliza na
Utamuonesha mahali kuna duka.
Okay. So thank you guys for joining today's session. It's a special one because we have a guest speaker, and as always, we are excited to have you here. And today we are joined by Maureen from Baking with Amari. I'm sure most of you know her, if not all of you. And she will be guiding us through one of the most important aspects of running a successful business. And it's titled How to Pay Yourself While Ensuring Profitability. So without further ado, I think I will welcome Maureen. She can introduce herself and then we can officially start. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Mercy, and hi, everyone. Thank you for hosting me in this webinar, in this meeting. I'm glad to be here. And I'm ready to go on to do my official introduction when I'm doing my presentation. So I think Mercy will let me know when I can do the presentation.
You can share your screen and we can start.
Okay, then. So I think I know we discussed this, but due to the nature of the setup, what I will suggest is I'll take questions at the end completely, just so that it's easier. And questions can be either via chat or I think maybe we'll take turns having people speak if they want to, so that it's just easier for me to do the presentation and just have everybody on mute. I'm thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for me, I'll just get started. Mercy, if at any point you see a chat or something, because I can't see that, I think you'll just let me know. All right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so again, everyone, welcome to this presentation. Thanks to Bay Connect for inviting me for this talk. I'm glad and honored to be here. Today, I'll be talking about costing and pricing your cakes. My disclaimer always is that obviously I cannot fully cover costing and pricing in one session. It's a very, very involved topic. So what I'm going to do is talk about 3 particular things that will help people understand costing a bit. So after each of these, you can ask questions, but I'll also share at the end, if anybody wants completely in-depth guidelines or something like that on how I can help. And also I'm thinking also towards the end, maybe Bay Connect can also talk about I think you guys have a cost calculator that you guys can talk about. So meanwhile, my topics today are going to be 3. Costs and expenses that bakers forget to include when doing costing and pricing. I'm going to talk about how to pay yourself, like what to consider when it comes to labor charges. And then the third thing I'm going to talk about is factors to consider when setting a profitable price. Okay, so I'll just take it step by step, and then I'll do a recap, and then people can ask questions on each of those topics. And guys, feel free to maybe note a question on the side or something, or even put it on chat, and then I'll check it out later. if you have a question in between my presentation. So my name is Maureen Belha Kamari. I'm a professional baker and a trainer. I'm the founder and chief trainer of my main business, which is called Baking with Amari. I'm a bakery professional. I've been baking for over 12 years professionally. I'm a cake decorator and I'm a recipe developer. I grew up and learned how to bake in high school, especially in high school, but now also when I went to college in the US. My background is in hotel management. I've worked in the baking industry since 2008 in a commercial bakery. I've been an entrepreneur in the Kenyan baking industry since 2012, and I'm a trainer and I started training in 2015. So I actually have three baking businesses. I have Baking with Amari, where we offer classes. We also have a bespoke kind of specific bakery where we only do chiffon cakes. I also have a brand that takes or covers baking for profit, anything to do with business, right? So again, my baking business is Baking with Amari. We offer both online and practical baking classes. We do recipe books, ebooks, and printed books. We also do baking events like Baking for Business masterclasses, things like those. Our physical location is Arcade Discount Mall if you're in Nairobi. Shop number 52, ground floor. We are on Ngong Road in Nairobi, next to the Greenhouse Mall. And after this, you can always check our site, amaribakery.com, to see exactly what we offer. So back to today's topic, costing and pricing. So some bakers wonder why the big deal about costing and pricing. And I just want to, there's so many reasons why it's important, but I want to share two reasons why you should sit down and do your costing. Number one is so that you're able to know the value of your cakes and pastries. I'll meet people who do amazing, beautiful cakes, but when I listen to the price, I am shocked. And I feel to myself, this person doesn't value their cake. They don't value their pastries. So by you sitting down and doing costing and pricing, it helps you know how much does it cost. How much does it cost to buy the ingredients? Spend the time to bake the cake or the pastry. Decorate the cake, right? When you sit down and do that, you actually yourself start valuing that product more, right? So to give a simple example, let's say you start business, you don't do your costing and pricing. You go to Naivas, you're like, oh, Naivas is selling 1,800 per kg. Let me sell 1,800 per kg. Then you come to like this kind of thing and you're like, hey, let me sit down, let me do my costing. 4 months later, you discover your 1 kg should actually be sold at 2,500, not 1,800. But now you have gotten customers, you're telling them 1,800. Now you have to start switching your price, right? Which is very difficult, by the way. Telling people to move from 1,800 to 2,500, very difficult. So if you do it ahead of time, you're able to value your cake and be able to price it the right price. Another reason that is really important to sit down and do your costing is for you to understand the cost of doing business. I'm assuming all of you people in this webinar are doing business, right? You're not doing a hobby. This is a business. So if you're doing business, you need to understand how much does it actually cost me? Then how much can I price, right? If you're doing business, you're able to understand how much does it cost me to do this business so that you're actually making profit. Because if you're doing business, I'm assuming all of us here are looking to make a profit. So if you sit down and do the costing, you're able to actually make a profit. So my 3 topics today, my first topic is about which costs and expenses bakers forget to include, especially when you're doing the costing and pricing. So before I get into that, I want to explain, baking is not like a supermarket. A supermarket will buy Prestige or 1 kg, they add a margin, they sell. As bakers, we're different. We have to buy raw materials, do something to those raw materials with our labor, and then we come up with something completely different, right? So we manufacture, we're a manufacturing business. So our costing is not the easiest costing to do because we have to take all these things, find out the final cost, and then come up with a price, right? So when you're doing costing as a baker, whether you're a home baker, you have a large bakery, whatever, there's 2 types of costings that you have to consider: direct costs and indirect costs. So direct costs are basically anything that's related to baking your cake specifically. Without that thing, your cake cannot happen or your cake cannot be baked, right? So for example, the baker, whether it's you or somebody else, without the label of the baker, that cake can't be there. Without the ingredients, right? Without specific things, without these direct costs, this cake cannot happen. The second type of costs are indirect costs. Now, you don't need these things to make the cake, but you need these costs to run your business. So sometimes they're called operational cost, right? So starting with the direct expenses, examples of these are, like I said, ingredients, labor of the baker, utilities, right? Some people call them factory overheads. Without your kitchen, whether you're a home baker or not, without your bakery shop, without the premise, you cannot bake the cake, right? Without electricity, water, gas, whatever you're using, charcoal oven, you cannot actually bake that cake. For some of us who actually have shops, without our business licenses, we cannot run the business, right? So something that's directly linked to making your cake, that's a direct expense. And most bakers actually account for the direct expenses usually. The thing most people don't account for are the indirect expenses, which are also known as operational costs. So they're not directly related to baking the cake, but you need these things to run the business, right? Whether you're a home baker or a shop, you have to market your business. You have to have airtime. You have to have maybe delivery, transport, soap, internet, that kind of thing. So those are indirect costs that you have to account for. Now, this is me simplifying this so to, like I'm giving this to the most simple point. But if you want to do your costing and pricing, find out the direct costs, add your indirect costs. Then when you put those two together, add a profit margin, consider other factors, then add your price. Okay, now I will explain that a little bit more, but that's how you do your costing. So most bakers will do direct cost. They forget the indirect cost, add a margin, consider some factors, then continue. So do not forget to add your indirect costs. Like, for example, I like giving examples of indirect costs. And my question to you is, have you added all these costs in your cake or in your pricing? There's something we call depreciation. Some people call it cost of using equipment. Like, for example, if I buy a handheld mixer, I use it for 12 months, it breaks, I have to buy another one, right? I shouldn't have to buy that mixer from my personal money. My business should pay for that mixer, right? If my oven breaks, I have to buy another oven. My business should pay for that. So that means every time you sell a cake, you should add the cost of using the equipment, right? The depreciation cost of that. Because if your oven is only going to last 10 years, that means you're losing money every month or every year for using that oven. Some things people forget. So these Krabbies, this Super Bright or Scotch Bright, M-Pesa charges, bank charges, kitchen costs, like you when you buy cling film or foil or parchment paper. Marketing costs, like there's people who give free samples all the time, but they have not accounted for the cost of those free samples. You keep maybe giving your business cards and brochures. You maybe start doing Facebook ads or Google ads. Maybe you have gone to an event to promote your business and you have paid for the event. Maybe you've paid 5,000, 7,000, 10,000. All those are marketing costs for your business. You have to make sure you're including those costs. Another thing is bakers will go, you go to TopServe, you are just buying the red cherries, you decide, oh, I'm going to buy a spatula or I'm going to buy a turntable. You have to account for the purchase of those tools. Wastage, you baked something, KPLC did the thing, steam kind of off, you have to waste or you have to throw away something. Research and development. Maybe somebody's asking for a recipe that you've never tried. So you have to test it first before you sell to them. You took the ingredients for the business, use them to make the cake, ate with your family. That's a cost, right? Professional education. Some of you may have come for my business classes, whether it's online or even physical. You paid for the class, right? If you didn't have this business, you would not have paid for this class. So you have to realize your business is costing you even something like professional education. So these are some of the things that you have to start considering. If some of you guys have, what do you call these? You have a company, right? We have to use lawyers. We have to use accountants, right? So all these things are happening because of your business, which means your business should be able to pay for all these indirect expenses. So that's one of the things I'm always telling home bakers, please account for all your costs, right? Make sure you're not only doing the direct cost, you're also including your indirect costs, even if you're a home baker, especially for those of you people who this is not a hobby. This is something you want to grow out of your home into a shop, or even just stay at home, but grow your business. So one of the things that I know people always thinking, oh, when it comes to indirect costs, what's the percent? There's no percentage, guys. You cannot skip stuff. You have to go and add, sit down, look at your business, put in all the costs that go into your business, find out how much it is, add it into your costing. There's no shortcut. So instead of looking for percentages of something, sit down and do the costing itself, right? So my first thing, make sure you're capturing all your costs. Second topic, how to pay yourself. So a lot of people struggle with how do I pay myself? How do I come up with a figure, all that stuff. So I'm going to share, by the way, there's lots and lots of ways, depending on the size of your business. Hobby baker, home baker, small shop, medium shop, large shop. But if you are a home baker, which I'm assuming most of you are, right? And this can even work if you have a shop. I'm going to share 3 ways that can be effective for you as a small baker or small scale baker to be able to pay yourself. So number 1, per hour. You can decide to value your time per hour instead. And my favorite example to give you is, like, let's say you hire a fundi to come and they come for a whole day. Okay, I think fundis right now have been paid 1,500, but let's say my fundi is being paid 1,000, and they work for 8 hours in the whole day. So if I was to quantify the cost of 1 hour for that fundi, right, it would be 125 shillings per hour. 1,000 divided by 8, that's 125. So let's say I want to be paid like that. I want to be paid 1,000 per day, right, for my business. But I'm not baking all the time. Maybe I'm a home baker, I just started, or maybe I work, baking is my side hustle. So I'm trying to quantify each time I do a cake, it takes me about 4 hours. Prep, baking the cake, waiting for cooling, decorating the cake, the whole thing. Maybe it takes me 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. So if I'm going to use the per hour, and I decide my 1 hour is 125 shillings that I want to be paid, I just do 125 times 4. That means for that one cake, my labor is 500. So I like that because it's a simpler way to start, especially if the baking is not something you do all the time, or it's a side hustle, or you want to simplify it. The second way that you can pay yourself is a salary. So when I quit my job, like in 2012, and I decided to do my business, I decided to pay myself a salary. It was a small salary, but I decided I'm going to pay myself something small. So if you're just starting and you're like, this business, it's new, it can't pay me a lot, but at least it should be able to pay me 5,000 shillings a month. Of course, as your business grows, it should pay you more and more. But let's just start simply with something like 5,000 shillings a month. So if my month has 30 days, you have to also have a target of the number of cakes you're going to sell a month. So when you do the salary, this one you have to figure out how many cakes am I going to sell per month. So I tell myself I'm going to sell 8 cakes per month. I'm starting again, maybe I'm not so busy, but I'm able to get maybe 2 cakes a week, like 2 cakes a week, I guess. Yeah, so like let's just say 8 cakes a month. So I take 5,000, divide that by my 8 cakes, and I'm able to know how much I'm actually able to pay myself, which I think is 625, right? So if I'm selling 8 cakes, I'm paying myself 5,000. Each cake has to pay me 625 shillings as the baker. If you're selling 10 cakes, each cake has to pay you 500 shillings. So the second way you can do this is to pay yourself, the baker, a salary, and then you can go adding the salary as you get busy. The third way of paying yourself is per piecework. The reason I give this option is if you're doing a birthday cake, that's a bit simpler. But when you're doing something like a wedding cake, that needs a higher skill. So if you're the kind of person who is doing wedding cakes and like an advanced skill design, you can choose to charge piecework. The reason I give you this option is some people still do this. Sometimes there's people who bake cakes and then they call a cake decorator to come and decorate for them the cake. What that person tells you is that, okay, for this 7-tier cake, I'm going to charge you 35,000, or I'm going to charge you 25,000 to do this, which means you have to pay the decorator 25,000 so that they finish and complete the cake for you. So that's kind of what you're trying to do in this case. You're looking at this piece of work and you're telling yourself, okay, for this whole cake, I want to be paid 20,000, or for this whole cake, I want to be paid a certain amount for the labor. So you can choose to do that for your wedding cakes. So as a home baker, by the way, you don't have to just choose one method. You can choose to use 2 methods. Like I did this in the beginning for the longest time. You can choose to use per hour method for the basic cakes, like something like birthday cakes, something that takes between 3 to 5 hours. Choose to just quantify 5 hours. Maybe you choose to say, okay, for a 5-hour cake, I'm going to do times 100, so it's 500 shillings. Because again, it's not very complex. It's not something that's going to take 40 hours. It's just, a very simple thing. So for the birthday cakes or for the simpler cakes, you can choose to do per hour type of costing and quantify it as like my 2 kg cake, spending 5 hours. I charge my 1 hour at 100 shillings. That's going to be 500 shillings. So that's one method that you can use when it comes to the birthday cakes. Then once you start getting custom orders and wedding cakes, right, the more complex stuff, it even doesn't have to be a wedding cake. It can be like a 2-tier graduation custom order. You can do the piecework for this one, the piecework method. Now, just to give you an example of this, if you look at this wedding cake or if you look at this custom cake, it has very many things involved, right? There's consultation, research, the execution, you have to buy things. So this actually can take you from 20 hours, right, of a wedding cake, and that's a simpler wedding cake, all the way up to 2 months in advance. So it takes more time to execute on these custom orders. Second thing is that the way I'm going to do like a Black Forest is not the way I'm going to do a 3-tier fondant cake with like a sugar flowers and everything. The type of skill required is different. It's not going to be a basic skill. It's going to be intermediate to advanced skill level, which means I want to get paid more per hour because this is more skill. So for example, if I'm doing a 7-tier wedding cake, it's going to take me approximately 50 hours. I'm not going to do 100 per hour. I'm going to do 300 per hour, right? Because advanced skill. So for example, if I do 300 shillings per hour for 50 hours, that's 15,000 shillings. So you can choose, hey, for this cake, I'm going to do this piecework, 15,000. Or in my case, I would just round off and do, hey, for this 7-tier wedding cake, I'm going to do 20,000 labor, right? So realize that 2 are different because of the skill level required. So you can choose to do hourly for your birthday cakes, and then for the custom and the wedding cakes, do per piece. Now, some people will be like, okay, that's a good thing, but I'm confused. How do I pay myself? How much do I choose? Do I choose to do 300 per hour? Do I choose to do 100? Here's my thing. I ask myself, how much do I need to survive, right? How much money do I need per month? And you start looking at your personal needs. So for example, I have to buy food for myself. I have to pay rent for my house. I have to fuel my car. I have to pay fare. I have to Uber, whatever it is you do. So I've broken down my personal needs of food, rent, transport, fuel to 20,000 per month. This is my personal needs. So yours can be 20, it can be 10, it can be 30K. Everybody is different, right? Second, I look at any other expenses that I need in my life per month. I think I can hear somebody who hasn't muted. If you can please mute, it would help. So any other expenses or savings that you have, for example, do you have to pay insurance per month? Do you have some type of savings or investment you do per month? Do you have a chama that you have to give something? Is there some personal education? Is, do you have to cater for some cost for maybe your children or your spouse or something? Mine is very little, it's 5,000. And then I look at any other miscellaneous cost that I might have per month, 5,000. So for me, I tell myself per month, my personal requirement for money, personal, me, Maureen, not somebody of me, myself, is 30,000. So that guides me on how I do my costing, because my business has to make sure somehow I'm getting 30,000 a month, right? So out of that, I'm able to come back to my business and say, okay, I have to sell, I don't know, I have to sell maybe 20 cakes a month. Each cake has to pay me this much so that I'm able to come up with 30,000 per month for myself. So if everything I've explained didn't help, this should at least be able to help. Now, my disclaimer here is that if you have a new business, please don't expect your new business to pay you 30,000, right? You want to be realistic. But if you've been in business between 3 to 5 years, you need to start asking yourself, what am I doing this business for? Is it supposed to be paying me? Okay, good. How much money should it be paying me at this point? When I first started, my business was paying me 0. By year 3, 4 there, maybe it started paying me something like 5,000 or something per month. As your business grows, it should start paying you, the baker, a certain amount of money, or you're not running a profitable business. So if you are completely lost on what to do, here's one way of figuring out how much your business should pay you per month. So I hope that at least helps you with picking a way to pay yourself. And just to go back to it again, per hour, salary per month, or piecework. Okay. My last point, or before I get to my final point, I want to stress the importance of proper costing, right? And I love sharing my stories because they tell you what not to do, right? Because I've made a lot of mistakes in my business. So in the first year when I started doing business in 2012. Actually, it was the second year. The second year of doing business, I got a shop. So I was doing home. Then I got a shop, like I think it was March 2013. When I got the shop, I was just doing cakes, decorating cakes, birthday cakes, that kind of thing, wedding cakes. Then in the vicinity, there's a shop person who started telling me, if you bake scones and you sell to us like 12 for 50 bob, we will buy from you. And I was like, okay. So I started selling scones like these. Okay. For the life of me, I do not know why I didn't cost the scones. I had costed everything else, but I did not cost these scones. I just took my recipe, made it a little bit economized. Like I removed the milk, I removed the eggs. I made it cheaper somehow. And then I decided to start selling. So I took these a packet of 12 scones to different shops, and people started buying. And so by in a short period of time, I was selling 10 packets per month. After some time, a baker visited me and told me, hey, I've stopped doing cupcakes for shops. And I was like, why? And she's like, well, because when I did the costing, I found it's too expensive for me, but I'm making a loss when I sell to the shop. And I remembered I had not done the costing. So I was like, hey, let me sit down, let me do my costing. The day I did my costing, I found out that the actual cost of my one packet was 120 shillings. Remember, I'm selling them 50 shillings, which means I was making a loss of about 60 shillings per packet of scones. Remember, I'm making 10 packets a day. So basically, I'm making a loss of 600 per day. When I did the math, it was coming to about like 15,000 that I was making a loss of in like 26 days. And I remember I did the costing on like a Friday. Monday, I went into all the shops. I'm stopping to do them. Now, the sad thing was I started doing those scones like around May. By July, that's when I stopped selling them. Unfortunately, by August, I had closed my shop because of many, many other factors. One of them being selling things at a loss. I ended up closing my shop, August 2013. And I actually remember that time I closed my shop, had to get a job because I had no money. I was in debt. and basically start it again like the next year. So my point to you guys is right now when you're selling at a loss, you don't think that it makes a difference. But after some time, it does. It becomes harder to do business. You can't buy stock. You can't pay yourself. It becomes harder. And over time, you might have to close your business. So this is sort of like this unseen effect of bad pricing in the beginning that gets worse over time. So please, 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 please. Moral of the story, do proper costing and pricing. And if you don't know, please, please either use the Big Connect cost calculator. I'm sure they'll show you guys how to do it. I'm sure they've done demos as well. Or get help on how to do it correctly, right? And I'll be sharing with you guys an online class at the end of this session that I have that can help you do that, okay? My final topic, factors to consider when setting a profitable price. So realize we are talking about it as costing and pricing. It's not one thing. We sit down, we do the costing. Then we come back and we find the price. What price am I going to sell to my customers? So this is also very tricky for people because they're like, okay, what do I consider before setting this particular price? So I just want to share some costs or some factors you can consider when coming up with a price. Number one, the costs that you are incurring as a business, right? If you're a home baker, you have different type of costs to somebody who has like a custom bakery shop. If you have a walk-in retail bakery, you have different costs. If you have a large-scale production bakery, different costs, right? So just to give like a difference, like a custom bakery shop means if I come into your shop, I will not find anything. You have to come, order something custom, pay, then come and pick it up later or tomorrow. Walk-in is like maybe Naivas Bakeries or Cake City or something. If I walk into your bakery, I can find something and buy at that time, right? Large scale, we're looking at people like Ken Blessed or people like those. They are mass producing on a daily basis. Home baker is different, right? The cost of somebody like a large scale is different from the home baker. So you actually have to look at your costs as a home baker. Realize that they are different, and then look at those factors to actually come up with your price, okay? So just a point, this is why I tell home bakers, you can look at the price of Naivas and set their price. They have different costs than you. They buy different. Even if you buy wholesale, you're not buying as wholesale as they are, right? Their prices are completely, they're less than yours, right? So you have to realize, first, you have to look at the type of business you have for you to be able to set the price. And I don't want to say the sad thing, but the reality is sometimes as a home baker, your costs can be more expensive than maybe a wholesaler or like a large scale production. And so sometimes that's why our cakes, if you're a home baker, tends to be a little bit more expensive than maybe say Naivas. But also it depends on who you're selling to, right? And I'll get to that. Second thing you have to consider before setting a price. Which niche are you in and how are prices in that niche? So my example is, if you're a home baker in Nairobi, focusing on celebration cakes, you're going to price different than a home baker in Moranga, focusing on the same niche, right? Because we have to look at, my market is Nairobi, maybe I'm selling to somebody in the suburbs, maybe upper middle class type of person who's able to buy cake. But if I'm going to Moranga, I might not find the same exact type of clientele. So if we are doing the same niche, but we have different areas, I might actually have to price different if I'm in Moranga as opposed to somebody who is in Nairobi, right? I even give an example. My favorite example to give is I can go to Kawangware, in the middle of Kawangware, sell 1 kg of Black Forest at 1,500. I'll go to Loresho, sell the same Black Forest at 1,500. Both types of people will not buy, but it'll be for different reasons. Why? The Kawangware person thinks that cake is too expensive. When they look at their buying, when they look at their mfuko, basically, they think 1,500 is too much for cake. But somebody in Loresho thinks that cake is too cheap, right? They think this must be a low quality cake. That is why it's being sold in 1,500. So as much as we like to ignore those things, you have to look at who are you selling to? What niche are you in? who is your target market. Then you can set the price. Also, you're not an island. If you're in Nairobi, there's tons of bakers in the same niche as you. So unfortunately, sometimes you do have to look at how are my other people in the same niche selling? Then ask yourself, am I going to sell the same? Am I going to be above or am I going to be less? If you're above, you start doing premium prices. You have to ask yourself, does my customer see more value in my cake? And if so, if not, how can I make them see more value in my cake, right? Which is a different topic on branding and marketing. But my point is you have to look at your market and your industry before setting the price. If I go to Moranga and I decide I'm gonna be selling 5,000 per kg and I want to get 50 orders per month, that might not be very possible, right? So look at the niche you're in, look at the current market, see how are prices in that niche, then you can make a decision. The other thing you have to think about, and this is something I've noticed because don't really think about, is what are your goals and timelines? What is your business goals? Why did you get into business? Do you want to make profit? Do you want to give charity? Like what is your goal, right? So are you doing baking as a short term, right? Because I know people who they're in campus, they're baking, but they're baking only until they get a job, right? So that they can do something else. That's short term. There's somebody who's doing long term. I'm in this business and I want my business to last for 20, 30, 40 years. So that's one of the things you have to consider. Second thing, are you looking to build a large and profitable brand? Or do you just want this thing to stay as a side hustle that just gives you a little bit of money on the side? So if I want to build my business to be large and profitable, I'm going to price differently than somebody who's just doing a side hustle to make money just for a few years. So these are some of the things you have to sit down and ask yourself, figure them out, then decide, okay, 5% is okay. But for me, if I want to do large and profitable brand, I'm thinking 30% is okay, right? So please consider what are your business goals and what are your timelines. Finally, you have to come and sit and ask yourself, what profit margin or what markup am I going to add? This is another topic that is so intensive. I do cover it in my online class, but it has its own segment. But to simplify it, I would tell you first, look at the industry range. Like what is a profitable business or what gives you a profitable business? Maybe in some segments, you can only mark up to 5 to 10. Like if you're doing bread, you can't do high markups. But if you're doing something like cake or luxury wedding cakes or something like that, your markup can be higher because people are willing to pay more for a wedding cake than they are willing to pay maybe say like for bread, right? Because that's market driven. So look at the industry and the range that is a good profit margin markup, which between 10 to 25, especially if you're doing something like celebration cakes, is quite safe. Then out of that, look at again your goals, right? Because maybe my goal is to make 10 million in 5 years, and maybe your goal is to make 1 million in 5 years. So you see, we can put different markups if we have different goals. So again, sit down and ask yourself, what are my business goals? What are my money goals? Then make a choice. Consider inflation, especially like the last 3 years, we all know inflation has been a bit crazy. So consider inflation, business growth goals. Do you want to just have one branch for 10 years? Or do you want to have in 12 years or in 10 years, I want to make sure I have 6 branches? Again, you have to consider that. Out of all those things, come up with a suitable percent margin for yourself. So for me, I always tell bakers this, some of you struggle with this, I know, but I'll explain. My preference, if you're doing celebration cakes, especially if you're doing quality cakes, is between 25 to 30. The reason why I tell you 25 is if we look at, like, for example, there's a time I think in 2021 or I don't know, one of those years, where I think inflation had gone up to 9%, right? That means between Monday and Friday, the like flour would be 100, 150, 200. So you'd find within 2 months, bakers have to keep changing their price. And so if you're the type of baker who put a very small percent, that's why you had to keep changing your price. However, if inflation is 9% and my profit margin is 25, I'm still safe even if inflation is 10%. Why? If I put 25% and inflation is 10%, the 10% is covering that inflation. So for my customers, I don't have to change my prices every month. I'm still safe with that 10% if there's inflation. So this is us trying to cushion ourselves from anything that might happen in the industry or in the economy over time. So 25, I tend to find is quite safe. It gives you that 10% playing ground on if anything happens, if prices go high, if just, crazy things happen. Then the 15% is where you make your profits, right? So if I do 10 plus 15, which is 25, I'm making my 15% profit from there. And if you're running a good business that has good cash flow and all the accounting things, you should be able to grow your business. You can take that 15% and buy equipment or invest in your business or get a shop. Or you can take the 15%, pay yourself, take a holiday or something like that, right? So I always tell bakers, go for something like 25 to 30 so that you're able to cushion your business, you get your profit, but also you're able to grow your business. Now, is 10 bad? No, you can still do 10, but it tends to be not the really safe bet for a business that wants to grow. So I hope that makes sense, which brings me to my Q&A segment for anybody who has any questions, right? I think, Masi, maybe we can head on to that.
Yes.
However, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your insights with us. I think it was a very good session. I feel like I want to change my career. Yes, you've covered a lot of aspects that bakers need to put in place. And I think we have some questions here on the chat. Maureen is Muthoni Kihara is asking what's the difference between costing and pricing.
What's the difference between costing and pricing? Costing is finding out how much it takes to make your cake. Like to put it very simply, it's just finding out how much does it cost to make my cake. So that's costing. And then now when it goes to the pricing, that's now coming up, setting a price of how much you want your customer to buy from you, right? It's setting the final price for that includes the profit for you to actually have your customers buy from you.
Okay. Yes, Emona, you can unmute.
Hi, I have some questions to ask. I realized the Bake Connect recently brought the product cost calculator, and personally, I used to use the same, but manually. For me, I don't know if it's the right way. Due to inflation, I used to not write the exact amount that I buy an item with. Maybe I add some, maybe 20 shillings or 30 shillings, depending what I'm doing the cost of production of every ingredient. I don't know if that's the right way to treat inflation. The other thing is I have a challenge because sometimes I didn't put all the expenses as expected in my Bake Connect app. How can I do that, considering the times that I skipped maybe the receipt, I had a busy schedule? How can I recorrect that so that I can be able to get a total of all the expenses and amount, the income? Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks for your question, Imuna. I will answer the first one. Second one, I think I'll possibly hand over to BeConnect. So when it comes to adding the 20, I think that's okay because, we all know that sometimes fly is 140, then it'll be 150. I think that's okay. But here's the thing, Amuna, like you can't predict every time. Because even if you add 20 bob, what if it shoots up by 50, like for a period of time? So the reason why I'm saying to include that the profit margin with a little extra is for the things you don't predict, for the cost that you don't see. So I hope that makes sense. So it's fine to add a little, that's okay. But also realize you can't catch or predict all the inflation all the time. And so the extra percent that I was talking about helps you like not have to predict, right? That 10% covers anything that you forgot that you didn't add or that you didn't add the extra 20. On your second question on the expenses, I think because it's very specific to cost calculator for BigConnect, I think maybe Emma can say or can maybe answer. Sorry, Masi can explain on that, on how to add the expenses later.
Dan, you want to take this one?
Yep. Maureen, you always make someone feel like changing careers. That's working. Yeah. But just to answer the question from Emuna, one of the ways you can do is so the Connect is a system, so it will always have your current records, but you can always backtrack an entry anytime you do a purchase. So even if you forgot to add any particular purchase and you found the receipt later on, you can always make that entry under expenses and you backtrack to the time of the receipt, and it will always fetch and align with that period of time, so that anytime you want to filter and see the expenses for a certain month, it will go back to that month and it will include that particular expense. As long as when you're creating the expense, you set the date of the expense, it will always tabulate that for that particular month. There is also the other feature, and probably I could brush through that when I do the cost calculator bit. There is the other feature of shopping list, which helps you essentially to capture the expenses quite quickly before forgetting. That one, once you have something in the shopping list, the moment you've bought it, just mark it as bought. It will capture that journal. You don't need to go again and record the next time. So we have that feature in the shopping list, which is connected to your expenses. So anytime, see the way you go to buy things, for example, you have your shopping list, you write it down in a piece of paper, then you go maybe to TopServe, you have 5 things, you have something else at EasyBakes. Sometimes we zigzag across town, starting from where your stage is, if you're using public or whatever. So you can list all of them now through the shopping list that is on BigConnect. So anytime you go to a store, you filter everything for TopServe, you see it there. When you buy, just mark it as bought. Just select it and mark it as bought. I can do a quick demo on that as well during our time. And that will automatically capture all those things and help with that issue of forgetting or maybe misplacing a receipt and later finding it out. Yeah, so we continue always to try and find easier ways to make that better for you. So I hope I've shed some light on that.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel and Miss Amari. I'm so grateful about the questions that you've answered.
Thank you.
Okay. So I actually let me go through the chat questions and answer them, and then I think we can maybe go to the demo. So I see, Catherine, you've written purchasing power must be equivalent to your kicks. That is true, but my addition to that is going to be based on your location and your niche. So you are correct. Bernice, I see you've asked, if you send a quote to a client and you discover midway through the baking process that the cost would be higher and the price will change, how do you navigate such a situation? Bernice, I would just tell you, stop having those types of situations, but here's what I'd say. Sort of learn how to properly do something, right? So that while baking in between, you should not be discovering it's more expensive. Try as much as possible to learn how to cost and price before, so that when you give somebody a quotation or you tell somebody, give me this deposit, you are 100% sure. Because in business, you don't want to be the person who's never sure how much something costs. You will keep making losses. So learn how to properly cost and price, so that by the time you're telling somebody a price, you are very confident in your price, in all these kind of things. In that situation, if you are trying to build your brand, I would not go back and tell them it's more expensive. I would take the L, like I'll take the loss, but then I will change after that. Like I will change after that. And if they come back, I'll tell them, I'm so sorry, my prices have gone up and everything. Because if you start telling people after you've taken an order that the price has changed, people lose trust in you. And let me tell you, if you're a business person who wants to last long, there is something in marketing we call KLT. That's know, like, and trust. I buy from people that I know, like, and trust. I will not trust you if in mid baking you're like, na utaongezea kamia tano hapo, like it just won't work, right? So the best thing is to just properly cost. Your second question I've seen is, as a home baker, at what point should you consider to transition to a physical store? How do you determine where best to have a physical store? I'm going to try and answer this to the best of my ability with my experience. I'm not saying it's the perfect answer, but I'm going to try. So at what point should you consider to transition to a physical store? My reason for transitioning was two-part. One, I was getting busy and the house just was not being able to fit my busyness. So it became a space type of issue. Secondly, I was trying to be closer to, the people, like closer to to a central point, because of many things like delivery, the cost of transport, all that stuff, right? And still, the first shop I didn't even make a good choice in terms of location, right? Which kind of leads to your second point. So consider transitioning when there is need. You've seen there is definitely a need for my product, and I want to go closer to the road. And third, you have the capital. It's very hard to make a decision to transition to the store and you don't have the money. So have the money, right? So that's the third thing I didn't do. I had some money, it was not enough. And because of that, I didn't last long. So make sure there's a demand for your goods. There's actually people who want to buy it. You've identified a good location and you have the capital to do it. If you don't have those three things, don't do it. Second part of your question, which is how do you determine where best to have a physical store? I have a short answer, but it needs a lot of research. First, what are you selling? Second, who wants the thing that you're selling? Third, where will they come to buy the thing, right? So if I'm looking to sell a high premium thing, then I go in the middle of a busy Kangware market and I open a shop, I won't last. So you have to identify what is your niche, what are you selling, who wants the thing you're selling, and then go find where is it that they are most likely to come. This is a random example, but just to give you an example, like if you people know this coffee shop called Art Cafe. Art Cafe is very specific on where they open their shops. They're looking at their target market and where they spend time, and then they open a shop there. So it's not that they're opening somewhere very far and then they're hoping to draw people there. They open where they know their people already frequent. So these are some of the things that you have to think about. So that's usually quite a process, but do market research based on what do you sell and what do people, like where the people you want at, and then see if you can open in a location that your target market will come easily. So Banis, I hope that answers your question. Judith, you've asked, the preference of 25 to 30 is a percentage of what? It's a percentage of the total cost of making your cake. Remember I said you have to cost the cake, direct costs and then indirect costs. So I'm going to pull out numbers, but just as an example, let's say I do my direct costs. I find out that my direct costs are 600. Then I add my indirect cost of the cake and I find those are also 600. So it's costing me 1,200 to make my 1 kg vanilla and to package and decorate and everything. So if 1,200 is the cost of cake, I can choose to add a percent of 30. So I'll do 1,200 plus 30% of 1,200, and then I get the cost. To use a simpler number, I think if I used 1,000 and I add, what's 30% of 100? Is it 30? Is it 300? Like that. Then I'll sell my final cake at 1,300. So it's usually percentage of the total cost of production, direct plus indirect costs. Catherine, oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to hear you like the presentation. Sharon, you've asked if I'm charging 1 kg birthday cake at 2,200 for normal clients, is it okay to charge a company or an organization the same price for the same cake, or should I cost higher, especially because there are no deposits, only payments maybe after a month? I think that is a personal choice, and yes, you can choose to do that. You can, you know, for them, especially if they're asking for quotation, you can quote theirs at 2,500 because it's a risk for you, right? Maybe for you, it's a risk that you're taking, and so you can choose to do 2,500. I feel like that's more of a personal decision, and I think that's okay. Joy, you have talked about, you talked about costing for wastage and research and development. Do you charge the client who's asking for that particular cake that you haven't done before, or how do you go about charging this? Good question. So Joy, many of your expenses are not geared toward one person. You have to figure them out. So for example, if I'm looking at wastage, I will ask myself in a 3-month period, how much cake do I waste? Of course, none of us want to waste cake, but sometimes it happens, right? Like within a 3-month period, you'll waste 1 kg, right? Or you'll waste, if you're a busy baker, you'll waste a kg a month. So when you're doing your expenses, again, this is, again, something that I cover in the online class. When you're doing your expenses, one of the expense is that you're going to account that every month you lose 1 kg of cake. Going back to my production cost, if my 1 kg costs 1,200, it means every month I am using 1,200 or losing 1,200 from wastage. So I have to put that in my costing. So in this case, it's going to be to your particular business. It's going to be how, maybe for me, it's 1 kg a month. Maybe for you, it's 2 kg a month. So instead of 1,200, you're going to put 2,400. Then what you're going to do, Joy, is you're going to divide that 1,200 between the number of cakes you sell per month. So remember when I said, if I'm doing a salary and I'm selling 10 cakes a month, each of those cakes have to pay a certain amount of labor to make my salary. So if I'm selling 10 cakes and I charge for 500 for labor, those 10 cakes in a month will end up paying the baker 5,000. I hope that makes sense. So you're going to do that for all your expenses. If the expense for a bakery is wastage is 1,200. You're going to do 1,200 divide by 10, and each cake has to pay 120 for wastage every month. That's kind of the concept. And you're going to do that for the wastage and the research and development. Okay. Joy, you can chat and tell me if that has answered your question. Tasty treats. I see you're saying thank you. Thanks. I'm glad you liked my presentation. Kindly touch on transitioning from home baking to owning a shop or a cake studio. Also finding cake decoration assistants and how to navigate the hiring process. Again, I will briefly answer it. Again, transitioning home baking to owning a shop. Do people want your thing? Like, is there demand for your product? What's your niche? Like, what type of people are you selling to? And then third, do you have the capital? Because if you don't have the capital, guys, don't do it. I've done it. I told you, I opened a shop, 6 months, I closed. I didn't have enough capital and many other mistakes I made. So make sure you have enough money, or at least make sure you have a sponsor who's going to give you that money at least for a year to cater for that shop or something like that, you know, truth be told. Secondly, finding cake decoration assistants and how to navigate the hiring process. I will never tell you that this is an easy process. It's not easy. It tends to just be difficult. But everybody finds their own way. So I tend to tell people there's 2 ways of doing this. I think for me, because my core business is training, I lean more towards training people my method than working with you. So you can choose to either one, hire somebody who doesn't have the skill or has very low skill and train them. The cost to you is time and training that person. And yes, you will train some of them and they'll go. Again, that's the cost of doing business. Second option, go out there, look for somebody who is an expert. Like, Tell people, I'm not training you. I'm just going to share our recipes, but you have to know how to bake. The difference between the two is the cost. If you're training somebody, you can pay somebody a little bit less. If you're looking for an expert, they need more payment. These bakers are going to ask for 25, 35,000, 40,000 a month. You have to pay that salary. So my question to you is, do you have the capital, or are you that busy to find an expert? Or do you want to find an assistant who has basic knowledge, and you train them, but then they'll be more flexible on maybe times, or maybe when it comes to payment? So weigh both of them. When it comes to the hiring process, again, that's something I'd tell you, if you can find an HR person, or maybe just kind of search online. Personally, what I do is I put out like job hiring. I use LinkedIn, sometimes I use Facebook, but because we have I've been training for so long, I also have, a group of people who I can search somebody from. So either you can choose to do online, or you can choose to tell other bakers, hey, I'm looking for someone. Search out different candidates and then find a way to shortlist them, right? Figure out, like, I have 10 people. This is what I want you to do. Come do an interview, talk to them, see if you're in alignment, and that kind of thing. So I'll keep it brief. I don't want to go into HR, but hopefully that helps a lot. Imuna, you're welcome. Rahab, are you supposed to charge for consultations, especially for wedding cake consultation, which are quite time consuming? So I want to tell you two things, Rahab. One, quick plug, I have a YouTube channel called Baking with Amari, and Sunday, I did a live stream on that. So at one point you can DM me and I'll send you the link. However, I don't think you should charge for consultations the first two. However, if somebody starts telling you they want another consultation, tell them by the third and the fourth consultation, I do charge. So that kind of makes you efficient. The reason I'm telling about that live stream is that I broke down a 5-step process on doing a wedding cake consultation efficiently, between 1 to 1.5 hours, right? Because this is somebody you don't know, they don't know you, so you don't have to charge for consultations round one. But if I've already talked to you and you keep wanting to talk, but you haven't booked, then by round 3, I'll start telling you, hey, by the third consultation, I have to charge you, right? So it forces them to either leave if they're not your client, or make a decision on whether they're going to charge you. So what I'd say, first consultation, make it free, just make it short. And then maybe the second or the third, you can tell them, listen, for second or third consultation, I charge. So Rahab, the reason I want you to find that link is because the time consuming, my 5-step process makes it less time consuming. Stop talking to people for like 3 hours. I hope that answers your question. Winnie Wanjiko, you're very welcome. As for calculating the profit, how do we go about it? Is it 30% of the selling price or the cost of the cake? It is 30% of the cost of the cake. So again, if my cost of the cake was $1,200, add 30%, 1,200 plus the 30% gives you the total amount. So you're going to do 30% of the cost of production, cost of making the cake. Then you add that as a price. Emuna, you've remembered, is it wrong to have a catalog or a price list as a baker? Personally, I haven't, but I changed after a period of time. Some baker one told me it's not right, but it works for me having prices for different cakes. Emuna, a lot of the times you have to realize in business, you have to make your own decisions. There's nothing wrong with like 5 ways of pricing, but choose what works for you, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a price list. I think it's good. I think it's good you review it. Obviously, it's good to review your pricing. If you do costing and pricing bakers, review every 6 months because, things change. So if you have a menu or a catalog, you can decide every 6 months, I'm going to review my catalog. And then if you need to, adjust it. I review prices every year. I don't do it every 6 months. I do it every year. Why? People understand sometimes things change and that's life. So review every 6 months. You can choose the way you want to do it. Do you want to do per kg? Do you want to do per serving? Do you want to have a custom quotation for everyone? That's fine. Just make sure that your target market is okay with the way you're pricing, because some people don't want to be told I don't have a price list, right? They like to know price list. And some people, they don't mind being given a custom breakdown. So understand your customer yourself and then choose the way that you're going to do that. So I mean, I don't think that it's good to listen to advice, but sometimes I don't. I listen to my customers and my business and the way I want to run business. So I hope that has answered your question. Joy, you're welcome. Sweet World, I didn't get it where the cake wastage is coming from. So here, let me give you 2 examples of wastage. One, KPLC decides to switch off power at 9 a.m. and power comes back 9 a.m. the next day. While you were baking that cake, it had gone for 20 minutes, right? Maybe you don't have a gas oven, you don't have a charcoal oven, which means that that 1 kg that was in the oven is a waste, right? Like you cannot salvage it. That is what wastage is. I hope that makes sense for you. Number 2, I was baking a cake. Maybe there's 3 of us in the bakery. An accident happened and a cake fell on the floor and it broke, right? What does that mean? I have to bake another cake. We call that wastage. It's wastage because you use the resources of the business to make the cake, the electricity and everything, but you did not sell that cake. It ended up in the trash. So I hope that makes sense to you, Sweet World, on what wastage is. Rahab, I think that we'll discuss how I can share the link in a bit, and I'll show you the number maybe. Winnie, Tasty Treat, you're welcome. And Muna, you review yearly? True, that's good. Joy, when it comes to wedding cakes, is it wise to break down the quotation for the client? Joy, I think that that's not always the greatest thing. I break down the cost. So I'll be like, okay, the wedding cake is 50,000 because, you know, it's this many kgs and it has this frosting and transport and all that is like 10,000 because, you know, I'm taking there. But unfortunately, you never want to tell your client exactly how it came up with the price, right? So Joy, I would tell you, be wise, don't share everything, but you can share maybe a breakdown of why. Emuna, I think that usually I don't share presentations, no, but I will share with you guys how you can learn the pricing from me. And I think also, I believe that BigConnect is recording this session, so they will repost it for people to be able to watch and consume again. So that might be it. Now, before I conclude, so I hand over, I do want to present something really, really, really quickly, just so that I can hand over maybe to BigConnect for a little bit. So the one thing I want to tell you people is what I've talked about is at the tip of the iceberg. It's a drop in the ocean because costing and pricing is a very involved process. Now, Daniel, I'm sure will share how to use the cost calculator, but sometimes even when you're using like a cost calculator, you still have to understand how to cost, like how does it work so that you can use some of these tools. So we have an online class that does that, right? It has video session on how to do costing and pricing for 4 types of bakery setups. And this gets into like, if you're a hobby baker, how to do the cakes. If you are somebody who's doing pastries and cookies, how to do that. If you're doing wedding cakes and custom cakes, how to do that. And finally, if you have a bigger setup, how to use a profit and loss statement, how to do the costing, right? So this is video sessions that explain everything, how to do everything step by step, right? So this class is usually 1,500. It's an online class, which means you can watch it anytime, morning, afternoon, whatever, online. As long as you have a smartphone, a PC, or a laptop, you can watch this in internet connection. This class is usually 1,500, but for this session, anyone who has come for this session for BigConnect, I'm doing 500 shillings off if you pay and enroll by the end of this week, which is Saturday, October 12th. And I'm sure Masi will probably share the contact, but here's the WhatsApp DM from my side. But also, I think we can collect your information, or BigConnect can connect your information, and we can be able to reach out to you guys. If you're interested in a class, you pay 1,000 shillings, you get 90 days access to all the videos. And these videos go in depth, right? They'll explain the things you're asking about, like wastage and all that stuff, and how to actually do the costing for your type of business. Because again, like I said, this is a very short period to be able to cover all this content. So I just wanted to mention that to you guys for anybody who is interested in that. I think I will hand over to either Mercy or Dan. That's the end of my presentation. I don't think there is a question I haven't seen.
Hi, Dan. Are you there? I think you can take over the screen.
Yeah, hi, Mercy. Hi, all. Thanks, Maureen. I have a question. When you said getting a sponsor, is it an angel investor? The one that no.
Very good question. I meant investor, but some people, their investor can be a spouse, their investor can be your sister, it can be your brother, it's up to you.
Whatever you do with that information is up to you.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so thanks, guys. Thanks, Maureen. I think I'll also be brief. Mercy, you could confirm if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, just as Maureen said, yes, you need to understand how to do the actual costing. It's good. Some of these tools are complementary tools. In as much as ours is also, we released it as, I believe it's Emuna who mentioned recently, with plans to continue growing it. Of course, you cannot ever underestimate the value of learning how to do it yourself. Understanding the concept helps you use the tool for your benefit. So I think where I'll start. So we do have a cost calculator, but allow me to touch on the expenses bit. So Bake Connect is essentially a tool that helps you run your baking business, and we started it with home bakers in mind. And now we are growing towards guys who have bakeries as we continue to fine-tune some of the things we get from your feedback. And we really do appreciate every one of you who uses Bake Connect and gives us feedback, as this is our customer appreciation week. That's why we also felt we could have this session today, so that at least we also give back, which is our motto. And so this essentially is the summary, and what I meant when I was talking to, I believe it's Emuna still. Whenever you find a receipt that you did not add at any one point, and this you can find on the Play Store. So I'm just using this platform, the laptop, for this particular presentation. So whatever time you find whatever receipt and you did not enter it, you can always come back and select, was it for electricity, water, food. You can even add a new category and, for example, say just general shopping. That's wholly up to you, really. And you put your costing there. Maybe it was a total of 2,000. If you wish to add the details, you can always add. Maybe it was edible print, and this is for you, really. Edible print, maybe there was flour there, etc. In bulk, and you just selected it. So you can always just go back and enter that date. If you want to submit another record, you can always click on submit another record. For this one, we may not, and just submit it. And it will backtrack with the month that you mentioned. So did I put July? I just done it quite fast. Let me see, just for custom period. I believe it was 3 months ago. There was a J somewhere. So let me just do a whole range and see. Yeah, so there it is. So it was actually June. So it will go back to that month, and when you do the custom period for June, it will be part of the June expenses. And there it is. So it will give you a total, and you'll always have that at the back, and you'll never fail to record that particular expense. The other thing is probably your summaries, and this is where it all adds up to, because if you're loyal, let's assume you start using BitConnect today and you decide the next 1 month I'm going to faithfully list or record an expense. Then at the end of that month, anything else that you've added, be it salaries, be it airtime, be it all the different categories, then you're able to tell my business consumed this particular amount for this particular month. If you do that for 3 months, you can tell within 3 months, okay, so I'm doing this. So an average would be give or take around 6,000 per month. But at least you're able to tell there are those months which are more, there are those months which are less, and you can always look and say, okay, my average is going to be 20,000 as an expense for my business, because it appears that's the highest I've ever spent. And that puts you on that safe space where you're told, as Maureen has mentioned, capture your expense. There is no shortcut to that, and we try to make it so easy as much as we can. You can always use the shopping list also. Now, the advantage of the shopping list is it acts just the way you do on a piece of paper. When you're going shopping, you write it down and you cancel it as you shop, and probably you go type it in an Excel somewhere to keep the records. But with a shopping list, again, this is just the web view. You can find the app itself on the Play Store. You just add the items, just add new item. You can say maybe it's 12-inch box. You want to add maybe 20 of them, and the total cost is coming to probably 1,200. This is a box, so maybe it's 600, depending on where you're buying. Yeah, and you decide, you can even set the date which you want to buy it so that it's there on your list. And if you have someone else who you're working with, for example, an employee, a staff member, or a partner, or that sponsor, maybe it's your spouse, you can always define the brand you want. Maybe for the box or board you want the brown one. It's up to you. These are not compulsory. And if you have a particular supplier, you can just mention it over there and submit multiple. So once you've done that, it will appear here on your shopping list. And when you go to buy, if you've indicated the supplier, then you can actually filter. And you know, from TopServe, these are the things in TopServe, and you never forget. And what I was mentioning about making it easier for your journaling, so this is on 9th of October. You can just say, select it. If there was a change in price, you can always edit it from there, and you say it was probably 580, maybe you got it at a discount, and then you just mark it as bought. It will ask you to confirm, and it will tell you these items will be added to your expenses. Confirm again. If everything is right, just submit. So what happens is when you go to your expenses, you'll be able to see your 20 pieces of brown box over there. I didn't change the units. I kept it at kgs. So that's why you're seeing this. But you're able to see everything there, and it keeps on tabulating for you how much you've spent. And this is this month. So essentially that's it. You don't have to forget the receipt. In as much as you got the receipt, you still have this record. And as long as your shopping list has an item, then you can always come here and check, what is it? Oh yeah, I forgot to tick this as bought. And that solves that problem of forgetting to add to your, to your expenses. And of course, as usual, we keep on saying we keep on improving to make it even more easier. There is a cost calculator. Let me now just come here to what is relevant. What was the biggest part of this conversation? So we do have, yes, a simple cost calculator. The whole idea here is to give you a snapshot of whether or not you are making a loss or you're making a profit. As Maureen has mentioned, this is very important for the growth of your business, or the opposite as well. It keeps you in check. So Essentially, how you use this, you just come to the cost calculator. These are some of the things that I've calculated before. And you come here and now you start costing your product. You can do this via your phone, or you can use it to the website, to the portal, the Connect itself. And you can, let's say, add lemon poppy. Forgive me, I may not be a baker. So some of these things, if you see me do ad hoc ingredients, feel free to forgive me. So probably let's cost 1 kg. And you can always help me if you feel you'd love to. So for example, this one, let's use flour. So I have flour in my list. So I can just click on that and choose 1 kg. No, it's usually in grams. So let's assume 300 and I change the unit here to grams. Now, this is something that I have under my ingredients and supplies. So you can always pre-fill, come to ingredients and supplies, and you list all your ingredients and supplies so that you can cost seamlessly. But even if you don't have them there, you can always come here and say, let me see if I have eggs. Oh yeah, I do have eggs. So let me just add that 1 piece. Let's say it's 50, I use 4 pieces. 80. Let me look for something I don't have. Maybe I don't have flavor. Yeah, this item does not exist. So you can create an item on the fly. And maybe you say flavor. Quantity, maybe you use 50 grams. And the buying price is probably 150 to 200, right? So so it tells you price per unit. We have converters for those who are more advanced and they want to go the way to cups. And you can select and give the value of the conversions. Now, we haven't given you this because they don't appear standard. There is weight for liquid versus dry ingredients. So we allow you to use the measures that are there, that you use yourself, and you can decide what else do you want to add for this particular ingredient. Maybe use cups, maybe use teaspoons, and maybe the computations are the same. Once you've done that, you just save. There you go. So we have my flavor. I don't know, maybe I use 5 grams and it tabulates. But now because you selected all the other units, remember the conversions, then you're able to change depending on the conversion rates. So I don't know what else to add, but let's assume this is your ingredients and supplies. So you can also add your box here. So ideally just cost everything. I believe that's what Maureen mentioned. Maybe 1 piece is 60. So this was already there. Now the beauty is the moment you add something once, you can reuse it again. It will save it for you. So you don't need to go here and add another time. And let's say you've gotten a value of ingredients and supplies. So it's clear I'm having a challenge here with my conversion for the grams. So okay, I'll go back there and change from the actual ingredients and supplies. But now I want you to focus here and see what it's doing. There's something that is happening here. It's adding your cost of production. So let me just change this and do an entry. There you go. Yeah, so it's adding your supplies and cost of production is being calculated here. Remember, this is what Maureen called direct cost. Yeah, what do I need for that cake? And there are now other things that are indirect, and we couple them together as overheads. So these are the the things that your expenses can show you how much you're buying or how much you're spending per X period of time. What's the amount that you wish? Then from there, because that's what you need to survive in your business. You need, like, for example, 20,000 to survive in your business. That's the most that your business has essentially spent in terms of expenses. So if you know your expenses or overheads, and you can add all the other items, and it comes to probably 25 or 30,000, how much of that should the cake give you? And Maureen has given us some ways of tabulating that depending on your business. And so once you've come up with a figure, for example, if you're doing 20,000 and you're making 20 cakes in a month, maybe you can pay yourself an overhead. I mean, you have overheads of worth 1,000, and you know if every cake gives me 1,000 shillings, then my business can survive. At least I'm not on the lower side. So it continues to tabulate for you the overheads. And as you continue, you also have your labor costs. So your labor cost comes to, say, based on what you've tabulated and you felt, whether it's per hour or per days, you're able to say, maybe I want to charge myself, to give myself 1,500. Right? So it's tabulating for me, and I don't know why. I think I'm having a challenge here with the cost of production total. Someone could check that out for us. That's a bug. Gilbert, perhaps you can. And so eventually, the whole idea is it will give you the whole tabulation for this. And I don't know why it's giving me a challenge here. And once I get my selling price, once I get my cost of production, then it gives me, I can easily play around with the selling price, which is probably the moment I start typing. As you can see, if I charge 0, then I'm having a loss. But if it's telling me my cost of production is 2,600, so ideally I should not charge anything less than 2,600. Otherwise, I'm eating into my cost of production. Remember, I've not even done a profit. And so if I give or take charge my cake at 3,400, it helps me calculate my profit margins. Thank you. And my tax, if I'm charging tax, I can add my 16% there for those who charge tax. And as you can see, it has affected your profits, because now tax is something that is charged and will be deducted from the selling price. So if you're charging tax, 3,400 may not be sufficient. So you can just do, when you look at that, it tells you your profitability. It keeps on calculating for you. And this is what Maureen was saying. If you're charging a certain amount and you're assuming, okay, maybe it's too expensive, the reality is your cake should be probably from 4,500 upwards, based on your calculations, what you've decided to give as overhead, what you've decided to give as labor. And this is something that you yourself decide. If you decide, then my labor is going to be slightly cheaper, it does the adjustments and it tells you, okay, then this is the value that you're charging. And essentially that's it. It helps you navigate the costing aspect of your business, so that at no one time you're left thinking, okay, perhaps I should have charged 1,500 like so and so. And the reality of it is, when you cost everything, it's giving you a cost of production of 21,887. If you are to make 30% over 30% profit, then you might want to add an extra this amount so that it comes to this amount, and then tax fills in the rest of the amount. If you don't charge tax when you remove that, then you're able to see you're making around 51% profit. So it helps you. And if you actually charged 1,500 on this cake, then you're going at a negative 45% loss. And this is where you're in danger of even closing your business moving forward. So essentially, that's how the cost calculator works. You just key in all your ingredients, key in the supplies, and we try to give some idea of what overheads are. just to sort of guide you, just in case you're not able to do it immediately, or you forget, or whatever reasons, you need to just find clarification. And we give you some sort of a summary here as you're tabulating, and you're able to see, okay, the selling price, if I charge it at this, then I'm making a profit of this percent. If I save this, my lemon pop is over here. This chart gives you a quick overview of what profitability you're having from each product that you've saved. So you can see this product gives you very high margins. This one gives you the highest margins based on what you tabulated. Some of these products are taxable, and it depends again on you. And so you might want to probably promote these products because they give you quite a higher percentage of profits, or one like this that is giving you exceptionally like a very, very high margin. But this of course, this is a test product, so even when you view, I believe it just has 2 ingredients, and I just gave it a big a big selling price, and that's why you're seeing such figures. So this helps you essentially know, am I making a profit, or naosha kuku migu, as a wise man once put, is my business going backwards? The rest are other features of the Connect. Here you can just add all your ingredients to be used later. You can edit and keep on changing the figures as the market moves. Yeah, and as usual, having a database of all your clients is very, very important. It's easier to resell to a client that knows you. Remember the KLT, that trusts you. And so we give you a database for all that. And when you look at that particular client, you're able to tell whether you can add their birthdays and special days, and the system will notify you 7 days before next year, because a birthday is yearly. If you know their children's birthday, you can add, and the system will remind you so that you don't miss that order. But also it will give you a summary of all their orders, every payments they have made, all notifications you've sent them, so that you can tell, okay, this person really loves Black Forest. So next time akikupigia, when Jen calls, you're like, hi Jen, you're the same yako ya kawaida. And someone feels appreciated because you're giving them customized service. So essentially that's it. There's so much more on BeConnect. You can always go to our website, beconnect.app. And Marcy, I believe you can share the same. You'll see more information about us, and you can request a demo at your own convenience for us to be able to just sit down and explain to you what really is BeConnect, how can it help you, any other questions you have beyond here. Yeah, so back to you, Marcy. I think
There's
pretty
some
much
questions. There are some questions on the chat you can check.
Right. Okay, I think you read for me. Hi, Dan. When might you be rolling out the app store version? Is it something in the works? Actually, the App Store version, App Store is iPhone, right? iOS environment, bunnies. Yeah, it has been something that we are looking into how to do that. Unfortunately, I may not give you the date right now. Allow me to get back to you on that. I believe, Mercy, you can share our number here, and Bernice, you can just text us on that WhatsApp number, and once I have a feedback for that, I will give you, we can get back to you ASAP. I know it's something that actually this year we've been getting quite a bit of asks, so something that definitely is in our radar amidst the rollouts that we are doing. Hi, Dan, is there a way to enter general shopping but break it down into specific items after shopping? Not sure I'm getting this. Is there a way to enter the general shopping but break it down into specific items after the shopping? Martha, maybe you could help me understand that question, or Mercy, if you do understand it. you could help me.
I'm also not sure what she meant. I don't know whether she's around. Maybe she can unmute and help us understand. I don't think she's
Thank you.
around.
Oh, okay. Is there a way to enter general shopping but break it down into specific items after shopping? So my assumption is the question is around, let me just go to shopping list. Shopping list, you can add one item at a time. The other one is under expenses. When you go to summaries, maybe add expenses, assuming you do general shopping. You can do the cost, but currently what you do is combine all of them, not one item at a time. But you can come here and just say shopping, and you add again, is it sugar, for example, and you specify the quantity and the total cost. And this breaks down now under shopping, and you say the date, preferred supplier. If you want to submit another one, you just submit. So this is also the other way you can add shopping, if not on the shopping list and you want to be very specific, one at a time. So I hope I have answered majority. Mercy has shared the numbers, so Bunnies, you can save and just text us your number from there. We'll be able to follow up. And probably let me just share the connects. There you go. That's our homepage. You can register there and try it and see if it works for you. Yeah, and if it does work for you, we'll be more than happy to have you on board and keep on helping your business grow.
All right. Thank you, Dan, for the demo. And thank you, everyone, for joining the session today. We look forward to having more like this ones. So that, sorry, is anyone else speaking?
Right. I think it was a
But
miscommunication.
Bonnie said that she had a question.
Modoni. Is there an option to, Modoni is the one around, is there an option to e.g. save a 1 kg cake recipe, but then in case someone wants 3 kgs, I adjust quantities accordingly and the cost to populate as needed down to markups, etc. Or will I have to enter the 3 kgs from scratch? Yeah, so Mudhoni, currently it works that way that you are able to enter one at a time. But where we're going is to be able to duplicate the same recipe to multiple kgs. That's something that we are looking into so that at least it makes it easier for you to do multiple very, very quickly. And I guess that's what you're looking at when you're asking, in case someone wants 3 kgs, can I adjust quantity accordingly? Yeah, so that currently is not able to duplicate. You might have to cost it separately. However, under products, when you're adding an order, you can change the quantity. For example, and again, as I mentioned, this is a growing calculator. So even as some of these questions, these are feedback that we are receiving as we continue to look into fine-tuning these processes. So under when you're adding a new order, So assuming these guys are in my customer list, so I don't need to add them again. If it's a phone, you can add using the phone, your phone contacts. So assuming it's an anniversary, let me just say baby shower boy. Okay. John baby shower. Maybe it might not work. So let me go with birthday. And let's say product name, maybe Black Forest. So I can have 5 kgs all the way to 3 kgs. This I have preset, but I can enter a custom size. And for example, this could be 5 kgs and change the price here to, you know, maybe it's going to cost me 7,500. This is the number of pieces. How many do they want? They want 2 pieces. So it's tabulating for you how many, or, you know, sometimes you get bulk orders. So it can be even 1 kg, maybe a school order, or I don't know, a ceremony that you have multiple 1 kg. So you can use, that's why we have the quantity there. But this is one, for example. So as you've seen, I've added a custom amount, and when I add, you see the price there. You can toggle it as you desire. Maybe you have extras that you want to add. These ones you can also create new on the fly, but let me go with what I have. Maybe edible print, that's 1 piece, and I sell it at 300. This one is, nobody sees this except you. Let's save. And maybe I add to that order. So now I have my add-ons and I have my cake, and it's adding up to 7,800. So you essentially at the product level, when you're adding, you're able to tweak if you set the product up. And yeah, you can continue do the rest. Want it delivered whatever time, 1 p.m. probably tomorrow. If the customer, you had saved the customer with an address, it will automatically pick that address to make it easier. But customers wanakwambia enough times, take it to, I don't know, maybe Kempinski. And you can add your delivery fee if you're the one who is going to service that. But if they are going to use an Uber, then you may not need that. They will deal with the Uber when it gets there. Yeah, and you capture the message on the cake. They want happy birthday. Any additional notes? They love pink. They said let it be pink. If you have any image you can add, then it's up to you. If they sent you an image, you can always add the image of the cake. It will appear there. And yeah, this becomes your summary. It has everything. If you wish to offer a discount, because there are people who, if you sell to them at 575 right now, tomorrow they will ask, so you'll use 75, but if you put it as a discount, they're able to tell, okay, it was actually a discount. So once you put a discount, whether it's Kenya shillings, you tabulate everything and you're able to move on. And you can notify the customer. And I'm sorry, now I think I've gone over and above beyond the question. But I hope it has added value. You can either send a message to the customer asking them for your, thanking them for their order of this date, of this amount. Please pay a deposit of at least whatever deposit you set to, you know, is it M-Pesa, is it Pochi la Biashara, is it your number, whichever you had set as your onboarding. And you also give them details of their whatever, their order. They can see their order. And you choose, is it WhatsApp you want to text them? Is it SMS? Is it email? Do you want to show them all the edible prints, etc.? It's up to you. If you don't, just close it. And let me just go with, I guess I'll go with text because I know WhatsApp web may not work very well. It's also given me an error that I need to upload because my amounts are 0. We always give you a few shillings anytime, every beginning of the month. But if you use WhatsApp, then there's no, you're just using data. You don't need the SMSs. Yeah, and it has created my order. I don't remember I put it for what date. I'm assuming It's a new order. Yeah, it's this one. It's a new order, and it's 21,100. And the rest of the processes, you can do invoicing, record a payment, you can download an invoice if it is corporate, and all these things. Confirm the order yourself, or when you record a payment, it turns to confirmed. So I hope I have answered the question. Yes, Amuna.
Hi, I have a question. What about if you add, you see the units, I don't know how to call them, grams, packet, pieces, I don't know, those things. I was requesting if you can add for a service. For example, like last week I was doing a wedding cake. I usually have a setting fee. A setting fee, I usually charge a fee for the setting and the whole thing, you know. But there is no quantity, that there is no those units that can define a service, you get, or maybe there is a service that you do apart from that, the cake itself, maybe helping in the cutting of the cake, you know, such thing. Maybe you can put something like that is not any quantified or something, I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, you're very right. Maybe one thing that could be a hack for that is, for example, so under orders, we have the extras and add-ons, anything that you want to add on to an order. And that comes in handy, especially as you're saying, you're doing a wedding cake. That's a bill on top. So for now, what you could do, you could just come here and set up an item as, I don't know, setup. You've called it setting fee.
Yeah, setting fee.
So its measure is not pieces, but maybe each, because it's per occasion or per cake. So this could be something that is a one-time thing. So it's not a measure of kgs, pieces, you know, dozen. It's per that thing. So you could probably use each as a hack right now. And so maybe if your setting fee is 4,000, so buying price and selling price essentially would help us with the shopping list, because that's, if it were an item that you buy, it would help with the shopping list, because one of the things that we're doing is eventually we'll connect the two. But selling price is what the customer will see. So maybe for setup, you may not buy that because it's a service, but you have a selling price, or this is how much you charge essentially. Yeah, so you can essentially put that as 0. Don't have a preferred supplier. So when you set that there, you have a setting fee, and now you go to, when you're going to add a product, when you're adding new, probably you're costing a quotation. You can have, let's say, the same John. If you have details of the event, then that's good. Again, could be birthday. Oh, sorry. This was a wedding. Yeah. And probably you add the multiple things that you want to add. You could even add a category that is not there. Probably, is it 40 kgs? Don't know, 10 kgs of cake, 10 kgs mixed or custom cake. Then it's cakes. Probably you've charged the whole, or you could add one item after the other, one flavor after the other. And yeah, this one I'm doing for the sake of, I don't know how